Welcome, Phil, the first of our NLP Conference presenter interviews. So thank you so much for joining us. And let's begin. I'm hoping some people are going to join us live on Facebook, and that's why Cass is going to be staring at his phone, looking like he's not taking any notice, but actually he's keeping an eye on all the Facebook interactions, and we'll cut in when he finds something interesting on Facebook. So, Phil, thank you, as I said, for joining us. Do tell us a little bit more about yourself, first of all, and your presentations at the conference next year.
So I'm Dr. Phil Parker. I started life, professional life, as an osteopath, and as many know, a budding rock guitar player. At the age of 21, I severed my left hand, which is not a good look if you're a guitar player or an osteopath, and I was told to never move my fingers again. And this was not the news I wanted to hear. So I spent a long time asking for second opinions and third opinions, and everybody said, you'll never recover. You've severed this nerve called the ulnar nerve, and that's the end of it. But I was a very contrary, I still am, but I was a very contrary teenager, 20-year-old. And I kept on asking until I finally found someone who said, I think you will recover. And I thought, well, what a smart and incisive mind you have. That is the right answer. And I did recover. I did recover the movement of my fingers, which was really important as being an osteopath, but also I ended up being a guitar player, played with Eric Clapton and all sorts of other people, and not taught myself to play the piano. Now you can't tell the difference between my two hands. And the reason I tell that story, and I often do tell it, is it also kind of started or kind of developed even further my interest in when people say you can't do something in terms of health. Is that always true? Now, sometimes it is, for sure, but to always check in and question and say, are there other things that maybe we could learn about health? One of the things I really looked at was about how doctors communicate, or healthcare professionals communicate, what they say, like you will never recover, those kind of conversations. And I've been looking at it for a long time, but interesting research has started to catch up with this and look at what is the impact of these kind of communications? And as NLP practitioners, we know how valuable, how important, how neurologically impactful every word we say is. And particularly, we also know most of us know about trance and hypnosis and suggestibility. There's a lot of studies, again, that say that in the doctor-patient interaction, there's often that, doctor me, doctor you patient, that hierarchy, and people are confused and they go into some kind of trance state, an awareness where they, like a sponge, just take in the information, maybe without thinking about it in the way they normally would in a normal conversation. And often people say, what did the doctor say? And the person goes, no idea. And that's why you take someone with you so that they can kind of stay out of that trance. Yeah. So looking at all that kind of stuff, as I say, research is really now interested in this. What are the impacts of the so-called placebo or non-specific effects, which means you take a drug, there's an effect from the chemicals, but there's another effect in the color of the room, the color of the pill, the niceness of the doctor, how warm it is, all sorts of other things. So those non-specific effects, which are true of every pill, every operation, every interaction. So looking at all that kind of stuff intrigues me and makes me explore, well, what can we learn from this? How can we bottle that? How can we understand that? How can we model that? Actually, I can talk in real words with you guys. You know what I'm talking about. How can we model that? What's going on there, so we can learn that and teach it to other people, so everybody gets that second half, the non-specific effects, as much as they possibly can, independent of whether the doctor's nice or the room's warm or the right color. How do we take that and utilize that to maximize the effect of the medicine or the intervention that we're having, whether it's NLP or surgery? And in fact, I've done a series of podcasts, and I'm sure you'll show the link to this later. There's two that are worth looking at. The Essential NLP podcast, all about NLP, and that's had something like nearly 750,000 downloads. But the other series, which is the Mind Body Connection podcast, where I interview the lead researchers who have been doing all this. They're really kind of straight scientists looking at this kind of weird, interesting world. And one of them, Professor Andrea Avers, who's just won a massive, $1 million grant for her research, really well thought of. I said to her, what's the most important thing, of all the studies you've done, you would give to the audience as a gift? And she said, If you're going for an operation and you don't think it's going to work, my advice would be don't have it.
Okay.
Have a conversation first with your doctor, get your head around it, because the operation will be good. The surgeon will do a good job. But if you are thinking this won't work or he doesn't know what he's doing, that has such a detrimental effect that it can counteract the benefits of the operation. And she's, as I say, a really straight scientist saying that your beliefs, your expectations have an effect, and sort that bit out first before you have the intervention. And so it's kind of come full circle that this is now not throughout medicine, but certainly in these people who are studying it, is like saying this is so important. Every doctor needs to know about it. So that's a very long, super long answer to your very, very short question about who am I, what do I do? So as a result, I've developed lots of interventions. The key one I'm known for is the lightning process, which harnesses all this kind of stuff. And at the conference, I'll be talking about some of the stuff I've learned along the way. And I think one of the key things in the talk I'm giving is a lot of people are kind of like overwhelmed a bit about working with health. It's like, well, can I do that? Should I do that? And those are all reasonable questions. You need to work within your skill set. But a lot of people are cautious of applying NLP to health because they don't quite know how to do it. Yeah. So what we're going to be looking at is presenting a framework of, okay, this is how you would approach this kind of thing. This is the way, not over-promising I can fix you and all this kind of stuff and I can cure you, but starting to think about, well, what are the ways to apply these amazing skills we have to help people to learn not how you can fix them, but how they can start to make changes in their own health, their own physiology, their own belief system. So whether it's your NLP is the thing that makes a difference, or your NLP is the thing that makes a difference. So when they go to the doctor, they're in a different place to get as much value as they can from that intervention. All those kind of things we'll be talking about.
And that's so valuable, isn't it, Phil, from that perspective of it's not necessarily, and I know, especially with the current situation with the pandemic and everything, and some wild claims that go around about all sorts of things. And I get the sense that you're very much talking about NLP and the lightning process as being part of the support structure for someone who may be going through some health challenges. And it's not necessarily the thing that's going to cure them. It's going to support their mindset so that they can get a better result potentially.
It kind of depends. In some cases, absolutely. It's about getting people, they've got a broken leg. They need to have that fixed by medicine. That's the right thing to do. But for other things, medicine struggles. Medicine doesn't know what to do very well with a whole range of illnesses and doesn't have some great solutions. And in some cases, there can be other solutions from other areas. So the lightning process at the moment, we're doing a study with long COVID, for example, with some GPs, which is showing very good results, and we're hoping to take that further. We're also doing other research with the NHS to see, can the lightning process, can we evidence the results that we found anecdotally in terms of helping people make change where nothing else makes a difference. But it is important as well to kind of work within your skill set. What do you know about? And also really, really important, and I think pretty obvious, is to make sure you are not preventing people from having the therapeutic care that they need and require and is provided in other places. But it's pretty, obvious kind of common sense conversations, those kind of things.
Yeah, absolutely. We say obvious, and sometimes it's less obvious. So bringing those things out as part of your presentation at the conference next year. So would you say that your session, potentially anybody who's NLP trained is going to benefit from coming to your session at the conference?
Well, of course, Karen, of course. How could they not? Yeah, they will, because for two reasons. One is if working with health is their thing, they're interested in that, want to find out more about it, it will be perfect for them. If they're already working in health, they'll probably learn some extra skills or applications of stuff they know, or maybe confirm that they was super, advanced anyway. But there's also a whole bunch of people who haven't particularly got an interest in working with others with health, but they have their own body that they would like to either enhance their health, improve their health, be weller. And so all those things are true because I talked earlier about beliefs, both from what the current research is saying and my own experience. Our beliefs are incredibly important in how our health is. And as we know, we know a lot about beliefs, or expectation, or response expectancy, as it's often called in psychology. And we know how powerful they are. And we also know that the tricksy thing about beliefs is we don't notice them as beliefs. We think that's true. That's the way it is. So we will all, he said in inverted commas, likely to have some undisclosed beliefs that we don't even know we have about our health. And, so it shows up in questions or conversations where people say stuff, oh, this is my weak system, or, this is the thing I always have trouble with. Notice the word always again, or it's been described in some way, it is weak, nominalized in some way, or compared to what, or missing authority. So even basic meta model language, you can hear there's some issues in that. And identifying these conversations or beliefs that just sneak under the conscious radar and just live there as kind of truths, which is what beliefs are, obviously, and helping people to identify, well, there's some stuff here that you're saying that isn't maybe very good for you. I'm just using really fundamental NLP practices to look at some of that kind of stuff. And so everybody would have probably some stuff like that.
So next year's conference is different to the previous NLP conferences that we've hosted in the past, in that it's virtual, which is something that we've all adapted to since March. So how do you plan to add value to your presentation in a virtual environment? I mean, I think you've already answered part of that question just by the value you're adding here and now. And it is interesting that there's so many challenges around people's beliefs again, with what can they potentially take away in a virtual environment. So what do you think around that sort of thing?
Well, I think like many people, we were very used to working face to face with people, and that, it's so important to be there and, really gauge what's going on for them. And I was a bit cautious about will we be able to translate the work that we do, which is very important, intense, sensitive work into Zoom or whatever technology we might use. But we trialed it and we found we got the same results. And I've done it quite a lot. I've done a lot of training with Zoom in the last 6 months, a lot of one-to-one work, working with groups with health issues, conferences, all sorts of stuff. And there is a bit missing. There's a bit of a channel missing. You can't smell the person. You can't quite sense it the same. But with Zoom, you do actually see people clearer. So if somebody's there right on the screen, you can see them better there if they're back of the room, and vice versa. If they're watching a demo, oh God, that person with big hairs in the way, that doesn't happen on Zoom. So you get that. Recording's much easier. Question and answers work slightly better, I think, with chat functions. I think the thing you've got to watch out for, and I think most of us are aware of this, if you're doing a day training, that you've got to have regular breaks and look at the trees and get out and do all that kind of stuff. But I think there are a number of amazing benefits from doing Zoom. So internationally, it's much easier to connect with people. You don't have to pay for flights or, burn, fossil fuels in the process, or hotels. And obviously presenters are probably cheaper and easier to get because they don't have to donate a whole week to that event. They can just do the half-an-hour slot. So I think there's some good things about it. And in terms of, the conference speech that I'll be doing, it's tailored specifically for how we're going to deliver it in this modality. And also breakout rooms. I don't know if people have used that, but we've used it a lot. They work really well. It's like having in fact, I'm sure you've had this experience when you do a training, you've got lots of background ambient noise of the people 2 chairs away from you chatting about their cat when you're trying to do some important work. In the breakout room, at least, you are isolated. It's you and that person focused. So, and the conference organizer can wander through, and it just works well, I think. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's our intention, is to still have that opportunity for people to get involved with the conference presentations, and we'll be using a combination of Zoom and Hoover, which is the app we normally use. So there will be that opportunity for the chat to still happen, and the chat to still happen after the presentation. So
I was going to say, I think one of the things that we're also inviting presenters, delegates, stewards, anyone involved, is to engage in the few weeks leading up to the conference actually opening, a series of social events, so that we can all trial the technology and see how we get on with it. and also for presenters to feel comfortable that they're dealing with the technology in the right way, and we're managing everything that needs to be managed behind the scenes to give you the best experience.
We do hope there'll be plenty of people there.
We do hope so.
And the other benefits as well. So again, you're obviously, you will be presenting live at the conference, which is wonderful. Just as we're recording this now, we will be recording all sessions at the conference so that they're available to all delegates for 6 months after the event. So if somebody isn't able to attend your presentation live, I'm confident, and presumably you will be confident, that they will still gain something from watching the recording afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my experience is that if you're doing it well, then if you're there, it's great. That it's you've got a bit more chance to interact and ask the questions. If you're not there, it's very, very similar. The quality is good, the recording's good, and you can do the exercise. There'll be, I always ensure that it's not just me chatting. Unlike I've done today, there will be, a lot more interactive stuff, because that's what you need. You want to take something away from it. So we're looking at how you're breaking up so people have a chance to do a bit of exercise, a bit more chatting about stuff, a bit more discussion, a bit of a demo, a bit of a debrief. So they get an overall view of, oh, okay. And the idea is they'll come away going, whether they're watching it live or the recorded version, they'll go, oh, okay, I think, I get my head around it. I think I can see how I can put my skill set into this world in this way with a bit of help. And obviously with any kind of, I think it's a 3-hour conference speech, probably with a half an hour break in it, scattered throughout it. 3 hours is going to be a starting point. You're going to have a sense of, oh, this is, I can get what I can do with this. But as always, there's like other courses we go, well, on the back of that, if you like that, this thing might be useful for you. So to support people as they take it further. So this is a deep starting point. It's not a 10-minute introduction, but it will be a good jumping off point for people to start to build on those skills, whether they're watching it live or recorded.
And that is the intention of the conference, is to introduce potentially, either techniques or skills and things like the lightning process that maybe people haven't necessarily come across in their practitioner training, their master practitioner training. But it's also very important, as you've said, what you're dealing with and what you're teaching is very much about applying your skills in a specific environment. And I think that's one of the key things with NLP, is about the applications of it. So being able to take those generic skills that we learn in a practitioner course and apply them in such a powerful way as you're doing and as your students do is incredible, and well, what makes NLP so amazing.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we've done, I've talked about this before, is I saw other bodies like EFT, TFT, what else? And NLP a little bit, where, there wasn't enough structure and people did a tiny course. Gary Craig, in charge of the EFT, gave it away. So it's free on the internet, just get on with it, because he wanted to spread it, which is a lovely thing. But as a result of that, if somebody says I'm an EFT practitioner, it was like, I don't know what that means, because have you done a proper course, or have you just read a book about it? And so it's lovely to have that kind of free open source stuff, but at the same time, it makes it really difficult from a research perspective. And health research is kind of king. If you research something, even like NLP, I was trying to do some research on NLP at a uni, and we said let's do something simple like a phobia cure. There's something really quite discrete. And they went, well, you've got to make sure everyone's got the same level of phobia, first of all, and is everyone doing the same intervention and for the same amount of time, and is it all spiders, or is it, and what they want to do is try and reduce as many of the variables so that they're just testing this one thing. And NLP is tricky for that, as is pretty much any psychotherapy, counseling intervention, because it should be patient-centered, which is what do you need, rather than what does the book say I need to do now, and that is a bit of a challenge. So with the lightning process, when we started it out, quite soon we realized we need to get the training to a very particular standard that is done the same way everywhere, so that when somebody says I'm a lightning process practitioner, that they are up to date, have CPT, and doing what they need to be doing, which on some level is all quite dull, but all really important, because then if you see someone, they've got the stamp saying this person is up to speed, and we have to do that. We're quite a small profession. We're only about 60-something people around the world in, I think it's 20 different countries. And we need to know wherever somebody goes, they're going to get the same as if they came to see me. And luckily we've achieved that, partly because of our NLP roots, and that we modeled, well, what is good training? What needs to happen? How do we measure that? You know, and we rolled it out. So we're very fortunate. If somebody goes to see a practitioner or me, they should get the same results, which is quite rare. You know, normally it's the kind of, so big guy gets the best results, and you know, further down the pyramid it becomes a little bit more wonky. We haven't found that. It doesn't seem to matter if you see me or somebody else, which is really nice. And that's a really good demonstration, of course, of NLP modeling, you know, taking something and replicating it consistently enough that anyone can get the same benefits from having that experience.
Absolutely. And I know that you have had published research. So will you be touching on, I mean, as you said, it's actually a very short, deep introduction within the conference. Will you be touching on the research side?
I don't think I will be. I think, it's quite dull. I mean, research isn't dull, but you can summarize research in a couple of lines, unless you really want to dig into the paper. But I have done lots of research. I think there's about 6 or 7 published papers that I've done so far, and there's some more in the pipeline. Some of them are on positive psychology stuff like flourishing, which has quite a big link to NLP, that kind of undisclosed link. Some of it's on the lightning process, some of it's on the work with what's called the rediscovery process, which is a version of the lightning process for addictions. Some of it's on the research of the lightning process called systematic review. But I'm not going to talk too much about that because people can look at that anywhere. They can just go to the website and pick it up. But there is research. But I think there's more interesting things we could talk about, more practically useful things.
That's actually good to have teased that out from that perspective, because it's important that people understand, what the presentation is going to be about. And so obviously, you've attended the real life conference before and presented before. So what does the NLP conference mean to you?
I really like it. I think it's quite easy being an NLP practitioner to feel quite lonely, quite alone, that, it's just you and your clients, or you and the occasional people you bump into. And then when you go there, like we've had in this conversation today, I can say the word modeling and you don't go, what, ethics? What are you talking, you know what I'm talking about? And it's really rare to do that. I have to constantly, when I'm talking to researchers, think, what is the terminology they use for this thing, and translate everything all the time. Or speaking to members of the public, if I go universal quantifier, they'll go, sorry, and I should never say that, obviously I wouldn't, but just jargon that we naturally sit in, meta model, or that's normalization. I was chatting to Judy Delosier 2 days ago, and I had to call her on some of the jargon because some of the audience just have no interest or no idea of NLP. She was going, "What's a normalization?" I is the biggest normalization, she'd say. I was like, I just need to explain what that means for everybody else. But in the NLP conference, we do have a shared language. We do have a shared map to some extent of what we're talking about, what the world is, what's possible, the areas of the map where for most people they go, that isn't even possible, it doesn't exist. We quite happily stroll in there on a regular basis. This is our home. And so that's a really nice thing, I think, a really, really nice thing. And then also seeing other people present. I'll be watching some of the other people present and learning stuff. They've got the same tools, but they've come at something new or something different, or modeled something like, oh, that's interesting. I like that. Yeah, that's really good. And that sense of community that you can meet up with people and talk with, meet old friends, new friends, really, really important for the profession, I think.
Yes. And as I mentioned, with having the Hoover app, I do hope, or we hope, that camaraderie and that side of things can still be maintained even in a virtual environment, and because it's not just a case of we're all going to be sitting on Zoom for 3 days. As you say, that could be quite tiring. But there is the app, and there are going to be those opportunities, as Cash said, before, to still interact with others, and it will be different, and I hope it will be just as good in a different way.
Yeah, I think there are lots of benefits from doing it this way, and I think it's intriguing to look at the future and wonder if people will do conferences again in the way we used to, because of the amount of time, money, energy spent. I mean, it's like hiring a venue. It's like, whoa, you got to make that money back before anything happens. I guess people will want to get together, but it's interesting to gaze into the future and wonder what it will be like.
Well, as you say, and it is that there's a new normal that continues to evolve at the moment, doesn't it? And it's still evolving, and it might still be evolving this time next year. Who knows? And I think that's where we do benefit as NLP professionals, that we're at least curious about how it's panning out, and we're okay with the change, and we're okay with the unknown. I noticed Cash looking at the phone.
Yeah.
Has anybody joined us?
Yes, Rachel McCoubry has asked the question. How have you been doing the lightning process with clients on Zoom? And how has it been compared to face-to-face? Apologies if you've already said this.
I haven't said it, but I kind of gently mentioned something about it earlier on. Basically, what happened was that a long time ago, about 10 years ago, people in the States said, can you do the lightning process with me? And by Skype it was then. And I did it with two people. It just didn't work very well. I think the screen was very small. It was a bit clunky, and it didn't work well. So for a long time, when people said, can we do it by Skype? I was like, I've tried it. I didn't find it that good. I really recommend you see someone local. And then when, so we kept on saying, we'll keep on looking at it, but that's where we were with it. And then we stopped looking, and then COVID hit, and somebody said, do you want to have another look at it? And so we went, okay. And technology is so different from what it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So we redesigned elements of the process that would be delivered properly in a Zoom environment. We trialed it with about 10 people to see, did they get the same results? Everyone got the same results as we would expect if they'd seen someone face to face. We rolled it out. We've been doing it now for whatever it was, 7 months. And the results seem to be the same. In different countries, because we have practitioners in different countries, certain countries, they can now work face to face because they've been out of lockdown, like New Zealand, for example, bits of Australia, bits of Norway. So some of them have gone back to doing face to face, and some of them have gone, actually, Zoom worked fine, and Australia's a big place. So it's easier for me to see you by Zoom. So yeah, it's been really nice to find that that's one of the benefits for us of this bizarre experience, is that people are getting the same results as if they had to travel. And that can be, with our client group, quite often they've got issues around fatigue, chemical sensitivity, anxiety around interacting with other people. There's lots of things that would be barriers for them. And technology has been their friend. So yeah, it's been an interesting time.
So do you think from that perspective that the pandemic has actually potentially layered another layer? Because you mentioned something on there about anxiety, just now about anxieties around interacting with others. So do you think that there is another layer that the pandemic has added that you're able to work with?
Yeah, the pandemic is very interesting. So for instance, people who have anxiety, a lot of them, some of them are much happier about the pandemic. It's like, I don't have to do any of the things that I don't like doing. I can function very well in my little bubble. So some people are quite, talk to me about this, quite fearful about when lockdown ends. I have to then go out and face my demons I don't normally want to do. And then there's the other flip side of it, which is people are left alone with no stimulus apart from their own internal conversation, which runs at 100 miles an hour, worrying about stuff. And they're finding the opposite. They're finding that being cooped up is not doing them any good. So there are lots of interesting effects of the COVID thing. And then there's some positive things, people saying, it's given me a chance to stop, think, reassess, work out what I want to do, decide if I want to commute like I used to. I know a lot of people are like, why did I get up at 7 o'clock, put a suit on every day of the week for the last 20 years? It works pretty well sitting in my PJs at home. I get home for the kids. I can work just as well as I used to. So it is interesting. As I say, I think there are lots of different ways of responding to something like this. And if anyone should be able to flow through it should be us, guys.
Absolutely. Are there any other?
No.
There's a few comments and.
Yeah, no. I mean, Rachel was talking about the link from the email didn't work. So
that's a separate.
Thank you for your question, Rachel. I think you were the only person with a question, so much appreciated.
We appreciate the question. So I think if there aren't any more questions. Thank you so much for your time, Phil. Do you have anything else that you wish to add about your presentation or any aspect of the conference?
No, I don't think so. I think, if you are interested in your health or the health of other people, then it's absolutely worth popping over at 8 o'clock. You can come in pajamas with a cappuccino. It's absolutely fine. It should be a fascinating, interesting romp through how we apply everything we know already and some new stuff to helping our health or other people's. And that probably applies to most people. So I think it would be a really valuable 3 hours.
Can I just add, Phil, just to make sure that people understand this message as well about the conference. Your presentation is a 3-hour conference, a 3-hour presentation on the Sunday morning. Anyone who buys a 3-day pass for this, any person who buys a 3-day pass gets access to the recordings of this for 6 months afterwards. So unlike the in-person conference, they can view your presentation over and over again, and as like I did when I watched a number of films over and over again. I get the nuances, I get the little bits that I missed the first time, the dialogue, etc. I think for your presentation particularly, that will be a huge benefit when people review it and see and get those nuances, because it's a very, very interesting subject. So thank you from me as well.
And so people who are interested in seeing your presentation live at the conference, you will be presenting at 8 a.m. BST on Sunday, May the 16th next year. Oh.
Rachel's come back with a lot of NLP training is very expensive. Do you think it would be better to charge less and have more people train up?
So the question is, do I think it's better to charge less and have more people train up? It's an interesting one. One of the big problems with that scale system is if you do have more people, you also should have, as you should there, but it works better to have lots and lots of assistants, because otherwise you just have a big guy on the stage and there's 300 people in the audience. That's not really going to do what you need to have happening. So scaling up is okay as long as you can provide the infrastructure that makes sure everybody gets the same quality as they would if it was a smaller course. And that costs money, because you've got to have a room, you've got to have people, and you've got to have all the organization. I think with all these things, that financial conversation about it has to be put into context with what are you getting. We know that you can get, I keep on seeing adverts for my $6 NLP master practitioner course on Facebook. Well, okay. You get what you pay for.
Yes, and it's the same, that's happening with the universities, isn't it? As in that they're taking, that they have the opportunity to take more and more people in, and they're all being charged the same. And then the quality, I think it is that balance between quality and quantity. From that,
it's a good question, because we want more and more people to know this stuff and be trained well. So absolutely, we want to remove barriers to it, but at the same time, it has to be in a way that makes sense and actually works fiscally at the same time.
And with courses such as anything that's happening in the NLP world, it's not quite the same. No disrespect to history, say, but it's not quite the same as teaching history, is it? Where it's a subject, there is factual information, but there's no interaction, there's no experiential part to well, maybe there is if somebody goes and visits somewhere where the Romans were, but there's no. It's very important in teaching the lightning process or NLP and those sorts of things. It's very important that you can ensure that the people you are certifying at the end of that training do have the competence to, as well as the knowledge, to be able to then go and work with members of the public.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the duty of care, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's why we don't allow anybody who's interested in doing it to do it. We need to have checks and balances to make sure people are at the level they need to be. They don't pass just because they've turned up. There's exams. It's just like you would do in a normal, any kind of professional organization. And I think people are okay with that. And I'm currently lecturing at uni, uni fees, 9 grand a year, you know. And yeah, you learn some stuff, absolutely. But you can learn a lot on a really good NLP course.
Yeah. Well, having a son who's in his second year, paying 9 grand a year, it's we the benefit of being able to sit in on some of his online lectures has been rather eye-opening, I think.
Yeah.
Possibly ought not to say any more. But anyway, thank you so much, Phil, for spending time with us today. We really appreciate it. Like we said, you can see Phil live at the NLP conference on Sunday the 16th at 8 AM. Join us in your PJs, and super early bird price for tickets is still available until the end of November. So do go to the conference website, www.nlpconference.com, and get your tickets now. It sounds like some sort of advert, don't I? I should be on QVC. Thank you, Phil, and we look forward to seeing you on the 16th, if not before.
Right, good to see you both.
Thanks
Take
very much.
care, Phil.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.